Welcome back. Hi, it's Mom. Love you guys. Hi, kids. My kidlets. Okay, these are really reflective. I apologize. One of these days, I'm not going to need the oxygen to read, but right now it's not worth the yawning and the coughing, right? So, hi. Yes, I'm cold. Okay, we're back to chapter 4, Chicago. Tom returned to his office at the 26th district in the heart of downtown. He dragged along a large suitcase, Jessup's, that he and Roy had filled with papers and personal effects from the deceased apartment. Roy had gone to Harold Washington Library, where Jessup worked, to search his office and talk to his coworkers, leaving Tom to sort through the suitcase solo. Tom was fine with that. He was almost feverish with questions, and the suitcase might contain answers. There was half a pot of old coffee set up on a table near the lockers, which Tom took back to his desk. They had worked the crime scene all morning, the discovery of Jessup's number tattoo fueling Tom's urgency. Tom hadn't found any obvious clues pertaining to it or the man's murder, but the resemblance to his own tattoo was undeniable. He had asked his parents about the mark at an early age. They had no answers. When they had adopted him at a few weeks old, he had already had the tattoo. Some years ago, after becoming a cop, Tom had searched for his birth parents, but could find no evidence that he was even adopted. According to the county, he was naturally born to Joe and Laura Mankowski. That was impossible, of course. His parents were both of Polish descent, short, dark, stocky. Tom was at least a foot taller and several shades lighter. He dug into the suitcase, pulling out some documents. Tom discovered he and Jessup were born at the same hospital. A labeled picture of Jessup with his parents showed that he also had little resemblance to them. Adopted as well? A long-lost brother? Not unless it was a really long labor, Tom mused. He and Jessup were born 6 days apart. He located a death certificate for Jessup's father, along with several U.S. patents in his father's name. One of his patents was for a waterproof hair dryer, which in Tom's mind sort of defeated the purpose. A recent birthday card from Jessup's mother wished him 30 more years of happiness, with love and kisses. Postmarked from Des Moines. A piece of notebook paper with several book titles on it was found in Jessup's desk. Handwriting appeared to be his. Among the titles were several biographies of Thomas Edison, a bio of Lincoln, a book about the Declaration of Independence, a book about the theory of relativity, and an old Ira Levin thriller. Tom checked the inventory sheet. None of these books were found in the apartment. Tom plugged a pen drive into his USB port. He had copied Jessup's My Documents folder and waded through spreadsheets, games, tax figures, and letters concerning library business. It took almost an hour, and the remainder of the coffee before he found something interesting. A word processing file. Bert.doc. It had no address heading and was dated 9 days ago. It read, Bert, looking forward to meeting you, to see if you live up to your many pictures. I realize it must be a shock, and even with the proof in the articles and in our own birth certificates, you must still harbor some doubt. Besides the question of how, there are also many whys. Perhaps we can figure these out together, as well as find the others. I'm enclosing a copy of a photo of you I recently found. Call me when you've made travel arrangements. All best, T. Jessup. Tom read it again, trying to find the hidden meaning. Was Bert a pen pal? Someone famous? Or had Jessup managed to find another person with a tattoo on their heel? He printed the letter and logged on to the internet. First stop, the Yellow Pages. Says Amelia Jessup in Des Moines. He jotted down her number and called. Busy. Tom then accessed the CPD database and found out Jessup had no criminal record or outstanding warrants. Nor was there mention of him in the Chicago Tribune archives. He searched Usenet, but Jessup's name and signature weren't on any of the big message boards. Google yielded nada. He tried to access Jessup's email account, but didn't have the password to get it in from his terminal. Switching tactics, Tom went to VICAP, the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program ran by the Phoebes. Because the crime scene report wasn't finished yet, he couldn't fill out the long questionnaire to add Jessup's murder to the database, but he did go surfing. Under the search for decapitation, he found no less than 700 entries spanning the last 50 years. That was a lot of people losing their heads. Tattoos of numbers gave him more than 8,000 hits. He combined the two for the next search and added Caucasian male under 35. 15 hits. They detailed some pretty horrible crimes, but none of them seemed related to Jessup. He refined his tattoo search to single-digit number tattoo left foot and got a hit. The crime took place last year in Tennessee. A 29-year-old Caucasian male by the name of Robert Mitchell had been found in the woods outside of Nashville. He had been stripped naked and impaled upon a 10-foot wooden pole. It had pierced his rectum and eventually exited through his mouth. The coroner theorized it took Mitchell a while to die. He had slid down the length of the stake, an inch at a time. By the time it ruptured something vital, Mitchell may have been hanging there for over 10 hours. The pictures made Tom wince. There were no witnesses, no suspects, and very little evidence. The investigation had been extensive and had taken hundreds of man-hours, but not a single lead panned out. Tom read on and felt the coffee roil in his gut. Besides being well-liked in the community, Mitchell had been a cop. He also had a 1-inch blue number on his left heel. There was a JPEG attachment of the ink, and Tom clicked on it to enlarge. A number 2. Done in the same style as his and Jessup's. Sorry, trying to get the camera right. Tom checked Mitchell's birth date and discovered Robert was only 8 days younger than he was. Tom's mouth became very dry. He reached to pour more coffee, but the pot was empty. Tom tried Amelia Jessup in Des Moines again. Still busy. He went back into the suitcase. Jessup's credit card statement showed no unusual purchases. The last months of canceled checks were all for food or utilities. There was an address book, but no one inside named Bert. Jessup's phone company was local, one Tom had dealt with many times, but they still required a warrant to release phone records. Tom filled out the paperwork to set the wheels in motion, but it would take a few hours to get a list of all of Jessup's calls. Unfortunately, Jessup didn't have a caller ID at his apartment. Strangely, he didn't have an answering machine either. Tom didn't know a single person who didn't own an answering machine unless they have voicemail. He searched the suitcase for previous phone bills and found one from last month. There was a charge for voicemail, but it didn't give Jessup's PIN. That was probably listed on Jessup's very first phone bill. Yes, once upon a time you were assigned a PIN, you didn't get your own. When he was assigned the line, Tom had only brought along the bills for the last few months. He hadn't thought there was any need to bring every single statement. So it was back to Jessup's apartment. He wanted to check the Vic's email anyways, and if he hurried, he could make it back before noon and grab a bite. He called Roy. Anything? He asked his partner. Office in order. No known enemies. You? I gotta run back to the scene. Check his voicemail. We can compare notes over lunch. Meet you back at the district. I'm almost done here. The day hadn't gotten any warmer, and the freezing drizzle had formed slush on his windshield. Tom climbed into his Mustang and stepped on a CD case that had fallen next to the gas pedal. Sting's latest album, unopened. His ex-girlfriend had given it to him months ago, at around the same time his car stereo stopped working. He tossed it in the back seat. Tom took Addison to Lakeshore Drive, south towards downtown. To his left, Tom could make out large ice patches on Lake Michigan. Ahead, in the distance, the twin antennas of the giant John Hancock building blinked in unison. Rush hour was in full force. Tom hit the siren, forging a winding path through traffic, one of the perks of being a cop. He exited on North Avenue and parked in front of a fire hydrant, another perk. Do you think that if a cop is parked in front of a fire hydrant and they have a fire, they break their windows out? Doubt it. The neighborhood can, well, okay, I don't doubt it if they can't get a hold of them, but I imagine they can get a hold of them. You know what I mean. The neighborhood consisted of upper middle class apartments, most of them recent college grads, all within crawling distance to the city's major hub of bars and clubs on Russian Division. There's a lot of roads and a lot of details. It's really cool. Good Arthur. Tom walked to Jessup's residence and let himself into the lobby door with the key supplied by the superintendent. The building was newly remodeled, brightly lit, secure. Jessup's door was taped off with yellow crime scene ribbon. Tom ducked under it and entered, turning on the lights. Sorry, long day, and when my oxygen is low, I start to yawn a lot. The lounger that the body was taped to, had been removed, taken to the lab to search for trace evidence. No one had been in yet to clean up, and the large brown bloodstains on the carpet had grown funky. Tom went to the stereo, which was speckled white with fingerprint dust, and turned it on. A CD loaded automatically. Even someone as classically inept as Tom recognized Beethoven's Fifth. He lowered the volume and let it play. To be completely honest, all I would know is that's classical. Yeah. Jessup's collection of old phone bills was in a file cabinet, and Tom searched until he found one with the voicemail pinned personal identification number on it. Then he picked up the phone and pressed the keys to access the messages. There was only one. Hi, Thomas. It's Bert. The convention is running all week, and I have to man the table every day until 8. But I'm free all day Saturday, then I have to go back to Milwaukee. Can we get together then? You got my number at the hotel. Call me later. A robotic voice indicated the call had taken place yesterday afternoon at 2:15. Tom played it again, listening closely. It was a man, Midwest accent, somewhat nasally voice. He didn't sound threatening or imposing. His manner was friendly, albeit harried. There was noise in the background. Tom repeated the message once more, trying to make out the sounds behind Bert's voice. It was the murmur of a large group of people. No street sounds, so they had to be inside. Bert had probably called from the convention he had mentioned. Tom closed his eyes, trying to pick up any key word in the background that would indicate what kind of a convention it was. No luck. He pressed the star button on the phone to save the message, then sat back down on the kitchen chair. At any given time, there were more than 24 conventions in the Chicagoland area, and hundreds of hotels. Bert mentioned that Jessup's had his number. Would he have written it down somewhere? There was no scratch pad by the phone. Tom hit the redial button on the receiver and got a local pizza shop. He went back to the second phone in the bedroom, but it didn't have a redial button. Punching *69 didn't work either. And for those young ones out there who don't know what *69 is, you used to be able to do it, and it would recall the last number on that phone. He would have to wait for the phone records to find out where Bert was staying. Moving on, Tom booted up the computer and was able to access Jessup's email. Most of it was spam, with a few letters concerning the library. Tom was reading about the budget for a remodeling job when he heard movement behind him. As a rookie, though he had never admitted to anyone, Tom used to practice quick draws in front of a mirror. He got to be pretty fast. After being promoted to detective, his hip holster disappeared and was replaced by the shoulder rig he wore now. Again, in the privacy of his apartment, he practiced drawing his gun from the new holster until he was just as fast. So without even thinking, Tom's hand reached into his jacket and tugged at his 9mm Model 17 Glock pistol. 18 rounds, with the first already chambered. He was quick. The intruder was quicker. A muscular arm snaked across Tom's chest and yanked him backwards. Tom was violently flipped over the intruder's hip, chair and all, and he landed hard on his shoulders. His grip still solid, Tom cleared leather on his holster and aimed the weapon upwards. A boot dug into his armpit, and two strong hands locked on the gun, twisting it out of his fist. It was tossed aside. Tom's vision stopped spinning, and he focused on the man standing over him. Short, extremely so, but built like a tank on steroids. He had a crew cut and a blonde Fu Manchu mustache. That's that little narrow one that goes like this. A chest-sized tattoo of a samurai was visible through his tight white t-shirt. "Hi, Tom." The man's foot shifted from Tom's armpit to his neck. He stepped down hard enough to cut off oxygen. Tom twisted and yanked at the leg, but could not get free. It was like wrestling with a tree trunk. His lungs began to burn, and he could feel his face become bright red. "So you wound up being a pig. A shitty one. Jessup put up a better fight than you." The man smiled, his mouth a dungeon of gray teeth. Three were missing, and one protruding incisor was capped in gold. It caught the light and twinkled at him. Tom was big, but limber. Grunting with effort, he brought up his long leg, aiming for the gold. The man turned in time, but still received a nasty kick to the side of his face. He stumbled back, and Tom scrambled to his hands and knees, sucking in air. He did a quick scan of the floor for his gun, and, not seeing it, launched himself at the smaller man. Tom's charge was met with a solid right to the jaw. It was the hardest punch Tom had ever taken, and his knees melted as if made of butter. As Tom fell, his attacker completed a tight reverse kick that connected with his chest. Tom landed on his side, unable to draw a breath. It felt like someone had parked a car on his ribcage. His attacker wiped some blood from his mouth and snarled. He reached inside his long coat at hip level. With a simple, swift motion, he withdrew an honest-to-God samurai sword. Tom tried to get up, but he still couldn't breathe. He had landed hard, and along with the pain in his chest and jaw, his nervous system sent him notice that he had somehow hurt his ass. He felt for it, found he was sitting on something hard, his Glock. The surprise must have shown on his face, because the man was out the door before he could bring the gun around. Tom sat there for 10 full minutes, his breath slowly returning, the Glock held in a shaky hand. When he finally felt strong enough to stand up, the world was still wobbly, and his stomach churned, as if he had eaten a nest of weasels. Boy, that's a image. He managed to get to the bathroom before he was sick, then drank some water out of the faucet, and called it in. Chapter 5. Chicago. Still.
Roy came into the hospital room just as the doctor was putting the final stitch into Tom's cheek. Ouch! Probably don't want this coffee, huh? Tom gave Roy a slight shake of his head. It was a gourmet brand, too. His partner set it down on a tray, next to a pile of bloody cotton balls. While some guy was doing a Jackie Chan on your face, I gave Jessup's mom a call. You ready for things to get weirder? Tom made an affirmative sound around the doctor's fingers. The Vic was adopted. Mrs. Jessup had some female problem, couldn't have kids. She and her husband were on waiting list at adoption agencies. But here's the deal. Some strange man just showed up out of the blue and dropped a baby off at their house, complete with birth certificates and 50 grand in cash. Tom raised an eyebrow. Roy continued. She doesn't know who he was or why he did it. Never heard from the guy again. But she doesn't think it ended there. She thinks her son was being watched, all while he was growing up. The doctor finished the knot and cut the thread. Tom thanked the man and touched the side of his face. Still numb. What do you mean, watched? She said once when Jessup was about 4, he was playing in the backyard, and she ran inside to get the phone. When she came back out, he was lying on the ground, some guy leaning over him. She yelled at the guy. He took off. Her kid was soaking wet, coughing up water. Jessup had wandered into the woods and fell in a pond. The guy had given him CPR, saved his life. But here's the thing. There wasn't another house around for almost a mile. So that guy shouldn't have been there. Maybe he was hiking, or a hunter, dressed in a suit in the middle of the woods. She said there were other times too. She'd see some person watching Jessup play in the park, then a few weeks later see the same person. Tom mulled it over, wondering how much Jessup's story mirrored his own. Had this same mysterious stranger also given his parents 50K? Roy, there's something you should know. He told his partner about his tattoo and his adoption, and also about the cop in Tennessee who had been impaled. And I just remembered something else. My parents used to joke that I had a guardian angel watching over me. I got into a bike accident when I was a kid. Broke my leg in an empty warehouse. Bad break. I passed out. No one knew I was there, but somehow I woke up in the hospital. The doctor said some man took me there, gave my phone number, and left. This is some seriously weird shit. Did you get anything else from Jessup's mother? I got a name. When the mystery guy dropped off Jessup, he also left birth certificates, already filled out. Not only the state one, but the one the hospital issued. Doctor in charge was a guy named Harold Harper, out of Rush Presbyterian. Paper trail ends in New Mexico. I've got some guys working on it. What's up with your foot? Tom's shoe was off. It was sitting on the cot in a plastic baggie. The guy who attacked me admitted to killing Jessup. I kicked him in the face. We get a DNA match off the blood on the shoe. Case is closed. So you gonna walk around without one shoe? Tom tossed Roy his car keys. My gym bag is in the trunk. I'm parked in emergency. Be a dear, would you? His sneakers retrieved, Tom signed his release and tailgated Roy back to the district. He wished he had asked his parents for a questions about its adoption when they were still alive, but it hadn't mattered at the time. Why question a perfect family? Tom's mother had been a saint, always loving and supportive. His dad, a sharp alderman, had been one of the best men Tom had ever known. Tom couldn't have picked better parents. After dropping off the shoe at the lab, Tom and Roy hit the computer. It took Tom 15 minutes to feed in details about his attacker, and the computer took .04 seconds to spit out an answer. Arthur Kilpatrick. He had a rap sheet that read like felonies greatest hits: assault, arson, burglary, rape, attempted murder, 2 stretches in prison, and a current warrant out for his arrest. He had seriously injured 11 people in a bar fight. Tom read the number again. 11. This was one major badass Click under distinguishing marks. Tom did, and discovered that among Kilpatrick's many tattoos was a blue number 9 on the bottom of his left heel. He was 11 days older than Tom. Shit just keeps getting weirder and weirder, Tom agreed. If Rod Serling, the Twilight Zone guy, had chosen that moment to walk out of the closet, he wouldn't have been surprised. So, why did this guy return to the crime scene, Tommy? You think he left something there? We searched every inch of that place. What could he have been looking for? Maybe he wasn't looking for anything. Maybe he was there because you were there. Tom blinked. He came there to kill me? We got 2 bodies, Jessup and that southern cop, both with number tats. Kilpatrick has a tat. You have a tat. But how did he know I was there? Could have followed you. It was rush hour. I used my siren to weave through. No one could have followed me. Stake the place out? 2 entrances, front and back. Can't watch both at once. Tom rubbed his chin, some of the feeling returning. Was there any way he could have alerted Kilpatrick to his arrival at the apartment? A sensor, a phone tap, a silent alarm. When I first got there, I turned on the stereo. Roy raised his eyebrows. And he heard it. You think the place was bugged? Only one way to find out. Tom searched through his desk until he found the foxhound, a souvenir from his days in Vice. It was a small silver box the size of a pager. The device scanned radio waves between 50 megahertz and 3 gigahertz, almost every available frequency. Check the batteries, it's been a while. While Roy fussed with the battery compartment, Tom returned to the drawer for a gravity knife. He placed it in his pants pocket. Tom wasn't going to be caught without a backup weapon again. I thought those knives were illegal. So? Call a cop. Tom drove, sparing the siren now that traffic had died down. He parked in the alley next to Jessup's building. We going stealth mode or noisy? Give him another shot at you. Stealth. If we find anything, we can set a trap for him later. Regardless, Tom pulled out his Glock and made sure a round was chambered. You look whiter than usual. You okay? I'm fine. You can wait in the car if you want. I'll find you a lollipop. Tom gave him a glare. They walked in through the back entrance and up to Jessup's apartment. Tom opened the door as quietly as possible, one hand on the butt of his pistol. He flipped on the lights, and after a quick tour, revealed the place was empty. He relaxed. Sorry, I'm not perfect. I apologize. I guess it is kind of like just reading with mom, ain't it? Roy took out the foxhound and played with the dials. He started at the bookcases, waving the antenna in a serpentine pattern from top to bottom. Nothing happened, so he moved on to the near wall. When the antenna pointed at the electrical outlet, the red light began to blink, and the foxhound vibrated. He nodded at Tom and pointed. Tom knelt next to the outlet and stared. It seemed completely normal. A lamp was plugged into the left socket. He switched it on, and the lamp worked fine. Tom went into the kitchen, where he recalled seeing some screwdrivers in a junk drawer. That is so ubiquitous. I wonder if it's worldwide or like just an America thing, but we all have that junk drawer. He found one and brought it back to the outlet. Then he unplugged the lamp and carefully unscrewed the cover. It was definitely a bug. He carefully He removed 2 more screws and took out the entire assembly, careful not to jostle or disconnect it. The device was high-tech and professional. A flat platform mic was taped to the inside of the wall, with a long antenna running alongside. It drew power off the apartment's electricity, and the current was live, and allowed the sockets to function. Tom looked for any labels or marketing and wasn't surprised that he didn't find any. He put the device back and joined up with Roy in the bedroom. His partner was kneeling next to another socket, the foxhound blinking. Tom took the detector into the kitchen. Within 2 minutes, he had found a third bug in an outlet next to the phone. Neither one of them said a word until they were back in the car. Roy spoke first. Damn, that guy had more bugs than a housing project. Not homemade spy gear either. That was some major league equipment. Even in Vice, we didn't have stuff that slick. So, who does have stuff like that? The government? They exchanged a look. Tom started the car and pulled out of the alley, eyes on the rearview mirror. What next? Try a sting? Draw Kilpatrick into a trap? What else can we do? Call the district. Have Wally check the facts. I'm waiting on Jessup's phone records. Roy got on the cell, and Tom considered this new development. Whoever had bugged Jessup's apartment was big league. Kilpatrick was the killer, but someone else had to be behind him. Perhaps the mysterious Bert? Fax came. Roy dialed another number. Jessup called the O'Hare Hyatt 3 times in the last few days. See if they have a convention going. Way ahead of you, partner. Tom hung a Ralph and headed for the freeway, or as we call it around here, flip a bitch. Got it. Roy paused his cell phone. The Hyatt is hosting a huge convention all this week. Hotel is booked solid. What kind of convention? It's an NFLCA expo. Enlighten me. The National Fishing Lures Collectors Association. Oh, that was this week? Damn it, I forgot to mark my calendar. Hurry! They said the Creek Chub auction starts in 20 minutes. Tom patted his pocket, reassured that the knife was still there, and merged onto I-90.